Promises were made. I intend to keep them. Those promises being Points League content. It's not going to be every day, but it's going to be some of the time. And that is infinitely more than the zero of the time that it had been in the past. Today, we're getting into Points League steals. And I think the official fantasy term is crappers now. I think crappers is what we're calling them. Possible busts as well on these initial rankings board with my buddy Jacob Dunne. I'll bring him in right now. What the hell are we waiting for? Jacob of SportsEthos, if that sounds familiar. That's my old stomping grounds. How are things over at the land formerly known as the Hoob?
Things are wonderful, my man. Yeah, I'm
Awesome.
loving life over at the SportsEthos and very happy to be back on your show, Dan.
It's a pleasure to have you back. Jacob Dunne is at Ain't Done Yet. AINT. Dunne is DUNNE. And then yet, I'm hoping folks can handle spelling on their own. You have a list a mile long on today's show. I'm going to be doing my best to try to flash some names and faces up on the screen as we're pouring our way through this thing. Points League targets, Points League avoids. As I've said with a few other guests, you're basically steering the boat once I stop talking now, which is probably why it's taking me so long to do so. Bit of a control freak. Jacob, where do you want to go first on today's episode? Who are we talking about?
Let's start with something rosy because at first, like in my notes, I have the players that I'm going to fade or crap on, as you would say. So let's start off with something rosy. And when I looked at the Yahoo list and I was looking down the list and I saw LaMelo Ball at 29, and usually I fade him because he's usually a first to second round talent. But right now he's ranked at 29, which would give him around a mid third round grade right now. And that's exactly where I would take a shot on him. I need two foundational players who I know are going to stay healthy, who have a good mix of, young and talent, because that's who I want steering my points league ship. But then in the third round, I see a LaMelo Ball with all that upside because we know what he can do, but we know that he can't stay healthy. But he has vowed to wear ankle braces. I don't know if you heard
The
that,
vow.
Dan.
Yeah. The vow. That's the thing that's hanging in the balance right now. You're totally right. And word has it, by the way, that he will likely move a little up the board at an upcoming
Sure.
Yahoo board rearrangement. But this is one of those interesting ones that is very, very low, no matter the format. 9-cat, 8-cat, points league, like 29 is a surprising one. How concerned are you about the ankle stuff? Because, I mean, it's great to hear about the braces, but dude played in a quarter of the games last year. So what do you expect? Or expect is hard because we don't really know. But what are kind of the ranges? What are you thinking about? How early is too early? That kind of thing with someone of his profile.
So this is probably obvious, but you definitely don't take him in the first round. Even if you're from Charlotte, even if you are LaMelo's cousin, just don't take him in the first round. You need a guy that you can rely on all season, that foundational piece. Once you get into the second round, there are a lot of players I would take ahead of him. But once it gets to like the late second round, like mid second round would be pushing it, but I would feel comfortable in like the mid to late second round for LaMelo Ball just because of that upside alone. The ankle braces, that he's strengthening his ankles, like that's like his number one priority this offseason is to stay healthy. I don't know when's the last time he stayed healthy, which, hey, for me, I am very much like I'm not going to touch the injury prone guys early, but I think his current 29th rank on Yahoo is kind of like it has his like injury risk baked in. Plus, he has so much upside that I'm willing to take that shot. If you want a chance at fantasy glory, you have to take some shots. And if he is going, in the middle to late second round to early third, that's definitely where I would definitely take a shot after I take my foundational piece.
Fair. All right, where should we go next? I know you got a lot of names, so we're gonna be hustling today.
All right.
By the
All
way,
right.
this is a good thing. I should mention.
Yes, absolutely. So next I got Alperen Sengun at 41.
Mm.
I absolutely think that is money. The Turkish big man, he took a huge junior leap last season. He averaged almost a double double, like 21, 9, and 5 assists with 1.2 steals to boot. And he doesn't hurt you in the free throw percentage as much as you would think a big man would. He hovers around 70%, which is not bad at all for um, a big man. And if you are looking to punt that free throw percentage in 9 cats, that's cool. But we're talking points. And Sengun is going to be a monster, especially on a Rockets team that's a high flying team. And he's only 22 years old. He just turned 22 years old. And he's going into his 4th year. That's a lot of experience. He's going to be relied on in Houston to lead them to the playoffs. So you can expect his usage to be through the roof.
What was his points league ranking last year? Because 9 cat he was like down at 60, and a lot of that was because of the free throw stuff. But that's a
Yeah.
category that's often at least somewhat diminished on the points league side.
Exactly. So without the free throw percentage and points league, he was a top, I want to say 30 player. He's
Mm.
just the way he contributes in all of the other categories with the assists to boost. He just has so much usage that I feel like he can't fail. Like maybe those are some famous last words, but I have him in my
Yeah.
top 20. I think that he's going to deliver this year. He's going to be a monster.
It reminds him. I have a cousin who it's an older cousin, and perhaps in his day had a little bit of a gambling problem. But there was one day we were sitting in a sports book in Vegas, and he turned to me, and I don't know, he had a bet on some team that was up like 19. He was probably laying 6 or 7, 4 or 5 minutes left, and he turned to me and he goes, "Danny, this one's almost a semi-lock." And I lost it. And he knew what he was doing. He was doing it on purpose to be silly. But that is kind of what popped into my head as you were talking about Sengun, which is like, you can't call anything a lock because
Right.
you guarantee your own failure by using that term. But for points leagues, yeah, I mean, 21, 9, and 5, like you're looking at the counting stats is a lot of what you're doing on that front. He's a positive in field goal percent. You do lose that a bit in points league if it's not as important. But I mean, the counting numbers for him, other than threes, like points, boards, assists, steals, and not really blocks, but not awful there.
Sure.
There's a lot. There's a lot in all of that. So very interesting stuff. Where do you want to go next? You want to go to another win, or do you want to go to a clunker? Entirely up to you. Again, it's hard for me to relinquish control, but I'm doing it.
Yeah. Well,
My
okay.
therapist
So
says I need to get better at this.
yeah. Let's quickly go to 2 more that I am high on right now that have
Okay, sweet.
that that have a good price, and that is Pascal Siakam at 62. I think that's crazy low. I know that he's not in Toronto where he's going to get all this usage, but he's at a very good spot in Indiana where all of his stats from that year from Toronto to Indiana, they're all very identical, and even boosted his rebounds from 6.3 a game to 7.8 once he went to Indiana. So he became even more valuable and even more efficient when he went to Indiana. Now, efficiency is not a must in points leagues, as we all know, but just he's going to get a ton of usage, and Tyrese Halliburton is only growing, and he's going to rely on Siakam, and Turner isn't the player that Siakam is. Siakam's the guy that's going to get the ball most, other than Tyrese Halliburton. So I really like his price. And then next, let's talk about Zion Williamson.
Mm.
Have you seen those viral pictures going around, Dan?
He's svelte, man. I mean, it's, classic off-season muscle
Sure.
watch, but he looks tiny. He looks like he's been starving himself.
He does, but he still has like that muscle definition. He looks happy, like
The Jewish
so
grandma in me is wants to call him skin and bones, baby. Zion,
right.
you got to eat something,
Put some
Bubba.
meat on them bones. Seriously though, but I mean, like, it tells me that he's finally taking his regimen seriously. He wants to go out there and just shed that label of being too big, if he keeps playing at this pace at his weight, then his career is going to be a short one. So I think he's finally taking it seriously. And I think he's ranked at 57, which I think is absolutely worth taking a shot on, because that's around like the 4th to 5th round. And there is really no risk when it comes to Zion, who has that much upside, who is going to get the ball that much, who is still young in his own right. I mean, I believe he's 24 years old. So he still has plenty of growing to do as well. So, if we go back to Duke Zion, and I heard that he weighs even less than when he was at Duke, then he'll be an absolute steal.
Yeah, what's really funny too, and just to kind of comment on the collection of the 4 players you've talked about so far, LaMelo profiles as someone that is probably at his current spot. If he's healthy-ish, he's a massive value no matter the format you're in. The other 3 names you mentioned is, I think, a good example of why it's important for me, lesson learned again, for me to get these point league shows going every once in a while, because they are quite literally 3 of the teams or 3 of the names that category league players come on the show and say are the worst. Well, maybe not Zion so much, but like the worst values on the board. Like,
Sure.
if you're not punting free throws, how does Zion, how does Siakam, how do these guys get anywhere near their number?
Right.
There's a little more optimism around Sengun because he does have a touch. So you could see
Right.
the free throw percent maybe coming up on its own. That's a way that he could climb in category leagues. Zion's probably not getting better at the foul line.
No.
Siakam has been the same dude for the better part of 3 or 4 or 5 years
Consistent.
now. So yeah, very consistent.
Mhm.
But I think it's a cool juxtaposition to look at the 2 formats kind of banging heads against another when we look at the board and we say, well, like, what the hell is Zion doing at 57? This is what Zion's doing at 57. Yahoo's board is, as Dan Titus told us last week, an aggregate of points, 8 cat, all 9 category leagues sort of pushed together.
Gotcha.
And so you get punt free throw teams that take Zion early, and you get points league team that take Zion early because of how exciting he is in the counting categories. And it's also, I think, Jacob, I'm sorry to steal some of the thunder here on this.
No, you're good.
It's an example of why points leagues, and I think you and Robin Marks both pointed this out, are a really nice way for people to get into fantasy basketball, because you can draft a super fun player like Zion and not worry about the fact that one category can jettison his value.
Right.
Is that is that an argument to play points leagues for people who've been doing it forever, or is it more an argument to play points leagues if it's relatively new to kind of simplify the game a little bit?
I honestly think it's a little bit of both. Now, I did it because my fantasy football league mates, like I wanted to introduce them to fantasy basketball. They hated doing 9 cat because they don't want their fantasy sports to be that technical. Like they don't want to play chess. They just want to play checkers. And so
Right.
it's like, all right, now we have this fantasy points for basketball that brings everyone together. Like you said, you can just take your favorite players and your stars, and they're going to get so much usage that your team is going to be solid. Whereas as I said on your last show, if you draft Paolo early, if you draft Ja early, your 9 cat team isn't going to be doing well in turnovers and field goal percentage and free throw percentage. Like you could doom your team, but in points leagues, those are the guys that you want. So
Yeah.
as you said, it's just a very funny juxtaposition between the 2 leagues. And then, let's say you are a veteran to 9 cat and you just want to break, it's like, all right, I'm done, streaming assists and free throw percentage. I just want to draft who I want to draft without thinking about the categories.
Yeah.
It's just a fun little break. And I will always say, like points leagues is checkers and 9 cat is chess, but fantasy basketball, is not for the faint of heart in any league format. But if you love basketball and you just want that fantasy football arcade style feel, then like points league is the way to go.
It's a damn good argument, man. It should be fun.
Yeah.
Before we get into the players that you don't like at their current ranks, promo time. I like to try to do that mid-show before people could tune us out, because we have more important things to say to them. So, Jacob Dunne at Ain't Done Yet of Sports Ethos fame. I know you're working on a fantasy football guide over there. What you got going on?
Man, I think there's like 10 plus articles that I've done, plus like 50 the other articles that like the SportsEthos team has done. So with the fantasy football drafts around the corner, or even, like this weekend, like you guys gotta, like we have a very good service. We have a bunch of smart minds in there just getting together, and working on the best possible product. And we're also working on our fantasy basketball draft guide as well. So, we have all the sports covered over there.
I know those guys very well. I know John Masales is in charge of the football package. I know Panda's my dude, man. He and I worked together for more than half a decade. We still talk all the time. Sharpest,
awesome.
One of the sharpest minds on the planet.
He is.
Out of curiosity, and I haven't looked at this in a while. I haven't looked since I was there. Can you still get the All Sport on a discount? That was something that was going on for a bit.
I believe that discount is still happening
Okay,
through this week. So I would definitely jump on that before the prices spike.
There you go. Get your football, get your basketball fixed back to back.
That's right.
All right, Mr. Dunne. Who is Dunne, by the way? Who do you know?
Who's cooked?
Who's cooked? Who this is gonna be so interesting for me. My eyes are gonna be like, what? Because it's probably gonna be some like hyper efficient, low scoring dude. But who do you not like on the points league board?
All right. This is a guy that I kind of have an annual gripe about this player, and his name is Joel Embiid. Have you ever heard of him?
Yeah. Well, he won himself a gold medal while irritating a number of countries that he also could have played for.
Exactly, right? I mean, I've just never been a fan of his ADP. I think one year I had him because he fell to the middle of the second round because he was coming off a major injury. So I took a chance on upside. And sometimes that's okay. But Embiid is ranked 9 on Yahoo, and he has never in his career played 70 games.
Yeah.
And he just had a season that was cut short by injury, which we can't hold too much against him. But even in his healthy seasons in 21 and 22 and 22 and 23, he played the most games in his career with 68 and 66 respectively. Now he goes from that to 39 games last year. I mean, my gut's saying that it just might spell the end of a dominant Embiid. That's not to say that when he's on the court, he's not going to be great. It's just how many games will he play? And in points leagues, I mean, the name of the game is health, because you want as many games as possible from your highly drafted players, because that's why you drafted them. Joel Embiid is probably a fine pick in 9-cat around that round. I mean, like, I still wouldn't take him because I can't really rely on him. I don't know if he's starting to do a downward trend, which is what I'm seeing. And entering his age 30 season, coming off a knee injury, already has back issues. I'm just completely out. I cannot take him at pick 9 or even in the first round.
Yeah, he's got all limb issues.
Yeah.
I mean, like you said, he's never been healthy, not once. And
Mm-hmm.
there were a couple games towards the end of the Olympics where he started to look better, but I thought at the beginning of the Olympic run, he was looking slow and sort of lumbering and doing a lot of fall down stuff.
Yes.
And that wasn't working out so great with the FIBA refs on the call.
No, we need those FIBA refs over here because they were not falling for Embiid's tricks.
Not much. And, to the NBA's credit, after the trade deadline this last year, they did taper off a lot of those sort of clunky, and Embiid wasn't playing during that stretch, so it's hard to know how his games would have gone. But
right.
I hope that that's how this season begins, with that same, more stringent, more strict refereeing. But no, I mean, he's a tough one. Like, in any head-to-head format, I don't know how you draft Joel Embiid, like, unless you're kind of shooting the moon a little bit and just say, look, I got a late first round pick. If I take a Jason Tatum here, I'm getting a top 15 guy that fine. Like, that's fine. But is it going to get me over the hump in a head-to-head league? Maybe
probably
not. Games Cap Roto, which everybody knows is my favorite format. Games Cap Roto is the format you can take Joel Embiid and you can get away with it, because if he plays 50 some odd games from this spot, he probably gets to his mark by totals. But like, in head-to-head, it's so much more about when the missed games are happening. And honestly, last year was probably the easiest to stomach because at least he was down for like 7 weeks and you didn't have to worry about, oh, he's in for 2 and he's out for 2 and he's in.
Fair.
You just IL him, but it's still horrible. I mean, half a
Right.
season is atrocious. So yeah, totally agree. You can't. He's basically undraftable in head-to-head formats unless he falls into the second round. Jacob, who's
Yeah.
next on your I don't like you list?
All right. Here's a guy that I haven't liked for the past few years, and that's Kyrie Irving.
Mm,
I know he's been the bane to much people's existence just in his days in Brooklyn, right? Where he was just taking random time off, making fantasy managers mad all over the world. um,
yeah,
but but he's at 13, which I think is absolutely insane.
that's nuts.
Now,
By the way, for category leagues too. So please continue. But yeah, he's wildly early.
yeah, I just like okay, so he had he had a phenomenal year last year and playoff run was great. That was an unexpected run that the Mavs made and he had a wonderful year, but he still only played 58
Hmm.
out of 82 games.
Hmm.
Okay? And that's considered a win for Kyrie nowadays that he plays what, maybe 70% of the games or less? Like,
Yeah.
that's just not someone who I want to put my chips in for. Like, I am definitely not taking him in the first or second round. I would feel kind of weird about taking him in the early third, like maybe the mid to late third, but there's no way that I'm getting him. So I'll let someone else grab him. As much as I love Uncle Drew, like I love his movie. I loved who he was with LeBron with the Cavs. Just this 32-year-old version of Kyrie is not someone that I want to take in the first or second round.
Yeah, he hasn't been healthy in 8, 9 years. Like, it's been a
Right.
very long time, even before all of the COVID era stuff. Like, he just
Right.
wasn't healthy then either. His totals rank last year, by the way, and this is me looking at a 9-cat number. I'm actually guessing, and you can clue me in on this, that he's actually a better 9-cat dude because of how strong he is in percentages, and the turnovers are not particularly high. He
Yeah.
was 27th by totals last year in 58 ball games. So you're looking at it like, man, if I could get him to 65 games, he'd be there. But that hasn't happened in half a decade either.
Right.
Uh, what was his rank in points leagues last year? I'm guessing because per game 9-cat, I think he was eighth last season, eighth or ninth. I'm guessing he was lower than that in points leagues, right?
So if you go by his average fantasy points scored, he was definitely top 10. He dominated.
Oh, okay.
It
So yeah,
but if you go towards his total fantasy points throughout the year, I think he was around like 40 or 50.
okay,
Like just because like I mean, like that's the name of the game. Like I keep saying, like you want players who are going to give you 65 plus games at the least. Like you don't want to take a risk that early on a player if they're not going to play 80% of games. So yeah, like when he plays, he's amazing. Just like Joel Embiid, just like Kawhi Leonard. All these players who are amazing per game, but how many games are they going to play? And
yeah.
we need healthy players because as we all know, the best ability is availability.
Avail.
So,
Avail. That's right. I'm
yes.
with you. I'm with you on
Yeah.
this one too. I think, even in Games Cap Roto, I don't want him at 13. I'd probably take
Yeah.
him at 18 or later in a
That's
Games
fair.
Cap. I prefer after 20. But again, head to head, like that's a damn roll of the dice. Anything inside 22, 24 is a massive roll of the dice on that dude's health. Let's
Right.
get through two more guys you don't like, and then Jacob, I'll let you out of the hot seat. Where are we going next?
Deal. All right. So I'm going with someone who might be surprising, but that's Desmond Bane. Uh, um, don't get me wrong. I love Bane. I love his game. I love how much he's grown so quickly. Um, it's just for me, you know, he's ranked in the 20s, at
Yeah,
29. So with John Morant coming back, he will definitely not see the same usage he did last year. And not to mention all the other up and coming players behind him making cases for more playing time, like Gigi Jackson, for instance. The Grizzlies just the Grizzlies just have a very deep team. to where Bane is absolutely going to be excellent at points and 3 points. But like I just can't stomach that high of a draft pick, especially when there are other people going behind him like De'Aaron Fox, his teammate Jaren Jackson Jr. and Cat, and I would even take a shot on the guy that I said earlier, LaMelo Ball, over him, just for that shot at upside. And there's no one else in Charlotte that's going to take Ball's usage. I really like Brandon Miller, but it's like LaMelo Ball is the team. So I would rather take a shot on guys going behind him than where Bane's going currently.
Yeah, I can't fight you on this one, even on the category league side either. He was 34th last year with no jaw around, and that means less stuff to do. So going to be hard for him to be better than that this season unless there's a massive efficiency jump, and it's hard to predict something like that happening. One more possible bust before I let you go.
All right, I'm going to go with a player that's near and dear to my heart. And that is Jamal Murray at 35.
Oh, interesting. So you don't like that's a no on Jamal. Intriguing.
It's a no for me, dog. It's just he makes me nervous after what he displayed at the Olympics this season. And towards the he did well against the Timberwolves in the last playoff series where they lost in game 7. Like, he did well that series, but for team Canada, he looked slow. I'm not sure if he missed his buddy Nikola Jokic. Maybe, it's hard not to miss that guy. But this is just a gut call. But at 35, with other players going behind him, such as Karl Anthony Towns, Paolo Banchero is a points league dandy, and Sengun. There are just other guys who I think are a lot more, both safer, younger, and just have more upside than Jamal Murray. I know that Murray's going to be asked to do a little bit more with Kentavious Caldwell-Pope gone, like shoot some more threes, I'm sure. And Murray's going to have amazing games. He won't bust completely. It's just that there are guys behind him that I would much rather have over him. And this is just a gut call. This is just what I witnessed on Team Canada. He just seemed like the 3rd, 4th, 5th option on that team. I know it was loaded with studs, but I just, at that price, at rank 35, I'll pass.
Understood. I know you've got some more names. I know we also don't really have time to get through all of them. Do you want to give me a quick, hyper fast list with no explanation needed?
All right. So for the players that I like that are going super late, I really like Josh Giddey at 82, Tyus Jones at 105, Derek Lively. I really like his prospects. I think that he's going to take that starting job from Gafford, either at the beginning or middle of the season. And then there are 3 sophomores that I saw late on the list that I am all over, and that is Brandon Pojemski, which I just learned how to pronounce his name. I thought it was Podziemski or something, but yeah, of the Warriors. And then Jaime Jaquez, I think, at 161. And then Scoot at 193. These are players that I think are going to take that sophomore leap as long as they stay healthy. But all 3 of those players have opportunity for more usage and for more playing time, and already proven that they can ball.
Yeah, I mean, Scoot in particular, his massive deficiencies are in categories that are just not that important on the points league side. So have some usage. Enjoy. Who cares if it's a train wreck in a lot of ways? Like,
exactly.
There's points and assists, man. Count it all the way to the bank. What about the lightning round of guys you don't like?
This one's quick. Jalen Duren at 50. It makes me a little nervous, especially with Zion, Siakam, and Julius Randle behind him. I know that Randle's not a great 9-cat player, but in points, it's absolutely amazing. And then Zach Edey at 101 seems silly to me, but is he supposed to start?
I mean, even if he does, it's not going to be that many minutes. So that's a weird one.
Right.
I think he's going. I bet he's going down in the next Yahoo board. That was Like,
I
he's
hope
ahead
so.
of Zubats, who's going to start and play 27 minutes for a Clippers team that's going to be like half Harden
Right.
Zubats pick and rolls this year. Yeah, that one's a weird one. Sorry,
Yeah.
continue.
Yeah. And then I saw Khalil Ware of the Heat. I know he was a summer league dandy. I really like his future. But as far as I know, he's still behind Thomas Bryant for backup center duties. Like I'm sure that he'll overtake him eventually. But Ware, I think he was at like 102 or 103, like over guys that are much, much, much safer. So,
Yeah.
that was a little silly as well.
Yeah, that one's at 104. I'm not sure
Okay.
I follow on that one either. Um, Jacob, thank you so much. You brought a
Yeah.
lot to the table today, and we got through all of it. Maybe not in as much detail as I would like, but that would also take 3.5 hours, and we're not
Yes.
going to do that. We're not going to do a
Oh, yeah.
200-minute podcast. Jacob, you can find at Sports Ethos. He is at Ain't Done Yet on Twitter. That is Ain't Dunne yet on social media. He is bringing the Points League heat today. Again, as promised, everybody, we get that Points League content out every once in a while. Again, not all the time, but Jacob, I very much appreciate you bringing that Points League stuff to the show today. Thank you for carving out the time too.
Absolutely, Dan. Thank you so much for having me, and have a great rest of your day, and good luck this season, man. Draft season.
So I think I exited that show when he was going into one last sentence. I'm sorry. I screwed that up at the very end. But I think he was just saying good luck to everybody in case that got cut off. That was Jacob Dunne, Points League maven. Robin Marks is our other Points League guy. He is hopefully we'll get him on the next 2 weeks or so. We'll see about the scheduling stuff on that. But that's my goal right now, is to get one Points League episode going at least once a month. But because we're basically doing 2 shows every weekday right now, I think we can go higher than that and then maybe dial it back down a little bit once we get towards the regular season. But again, you can find Jacob Dunne's work at Sports Ethos at Ain't Done Yet on social media. I also thought it was really interesting, and now I've lost the thread on how many players. I think he mentioned 17 or 18 guys altogether, and we got 8 of them that we were able to go in depth on. But I really find it interesting how very different points league targets can be. Because he's, and this is why I think it's important to do a show like that. Because somebody who's playing in a points league that's listening to my show, most shows, frankly, right now that are looking more at the category league side of things. And I think that's a reason to follow our buddy Robin Marks, who covers it more from a points league standpoint. It's a really different beast. Alperen Sengun is not the crazy one there. There are a lot of people that are really high on him because he's a punt one category kind of dude. But, Paolo Banchero, who we didn't really talk about much on today's show, his pre-rank is 37, and that requires you to basically punt all 3 of the quote-unquote points league categories, which is the both percentages and turnovers. They are typically diminished, not 0, but diminished on the points league side. And so someone might listen to my show playing in a points league and hear me say, oh my God, Paolo Banchero at 37. This is the worst pick on planet Earth. And, someone in their draft will take him right there and they'll go, this idiot took him at 37. But on a points league draft, it makes a lot of sense. But that's also kind of one of the nice things about this board. In talking to Dan Titus last week, he was like, maybe someday Yahoo will be able to set the board up based on your league type, meaning you go into your draft room and the list that populates is their 9-cat board or their 9-cat projections or whatever it is. That would be both good and bad. That would be good from the standpoint of someone auto drafting would probably end up with a slightly better team because it's going to be more accurate representation. Probably not projections, because that includes a heavy dose of games played. Like, they got to make the call on games played, and that's really, really hard. But just like a 9-cat board is obviously not going to have Paolo at 37. He just won't be there. But I actually kind of like the fact that Yahoo's board is cockamamie, is multiple formats all squished together and mushed into a pile, because we go in there as 9-cat players which is the format that values efficiency the most because it also includes turnovers in addition to the 2 percentages. And we can wreck shop on these things. It was a question that was posed to me in one of the other shows on YouTube. And the person was very respectful about it. But they were like, if you hate everybody, who are you going to draft? I was like, well, that's the nice thing about this board is that, like, there are a lot of guys that I think are just way too early on this particular board because of whatever reason, whether it's massive injury risk or bad percentages. We can attack it from a different way. We can try to win those categories that people forget about. You guys know me. You guys have listened to me presumably a lot longer than this new show has been in existence. I love to win the defensive categories and the percentages. I think those are the 4 forgotten, particularly blocks and the percentages, but defense and the percentages. Those are the 4 forgotten categories. And I like to be pretty damn competitive in turnovers as well. I have won head-to-head playoff leagues winning those 5: steals, blocks, field goal, free throw, turnovers. Nothing pisses off an opponent more than when they win all of the popcorn categories, points, threes, boards, assists, and still lose the week. It's not a great way to try to win your league, but it's doable. And it shuffles the board in a really fun way on the 9-cat side. That on the points league side, as we just heard about from Jacob, nope, don't do that. You ain't winning crap trying to take down those 5 categories because 3 of them are diminished in value. You want to think about it from that standpoint. You say, okay, on the points league side, percentages and turnovers are diminished in value. They're worth whatever you want to say, a quarter, a third of what they might be in a 9-cat format, or 0. Some points league categories don't count them at all. If you try to win those, you get 1 point instead of 3, meaning you in real trouble now. There's only, 7 points on the line, and you got to win 4 of them? Tough road to hoe. Coming up, the rest of this week here on Old Man Squad Fantasy Basketball. Did I call it? I may have called the show by the wrong name at the beginning. Catch me on that. I might not have called the show by any name at the beginning. First of all, follow me on Twitter at Dan Vespers. Follow at Old Man Squad on Twitter because it'll follow you back. I forgot to mention, everybody, please do hit like on this bad boy. Please subscribe all the different places. Those remain extraordinarily important. But anyway, what we were saying was, coming up tomorrow, we're talking to Karen. We're going to get into his mock results, which I can actually look at those on the fly right now. He did indeed have the 12th pick. He went Steph Curry, Donovan Mitchell on the turn. That should be a fun breakdown on tomorrow's show. That's a pretty guard-leaning start. Where does Karen go after that? You'll find out on tomorrow's show. We'll also likely, provided they open, do our first live mock episode. That's going to be a freaking blast. I'm hoping we can talk to Dan Palio on Friday. I got to confirm that one and get the time locked in right. Might do another mock on Friday. Might do the after 100 show for the Yahoo board. So we'll get into the sort of the late picks / flyers / sleepers. And then over the weekend, my hope is to get through 2 more of our 5 missing team preview shows as we close in on actually being able to shut that book and file it away. Thanks again to Jacob Dunne for coming on, joining us on this Points League episode. Again, I'm Dan Vespers for Old Man Squad Fantasy Basketball. Enjoy the rest of your Wednesday, Thursday morning, whenever you happen to be taking this in. We'll see you guys soon.